Welcome everyone to our channel where we uncover the most fascinating, unbelievable, and jaw-dropping stories from the world of coins, rare finds, and incredible numismatic treasures that could be sitting unnoticed in your pocket change. And today's story will absolutely blow your mind because we are diving deep into the unbelievable tale of the 1980 Washington quarter that's valued at a staggering $51 million due to its extraordinary errors, minting mistakes, and mysterious anomalies that have made it one of the most talked about coins in American numismatic history, a coin so rare that even seasoned collectors can barely believe it exists, and yet it has captured the attention of experts, investors, and treasure hunters from all over the world who are desperate to understand what makes this single piece of copper nickel so unbelievably valuable. So sit tight as we take you on a journey through the strange, mesmerizing, and almost mythical story behind the 1980 quarter that could make someone an instant multimillionaire overnight. To understand why the 1980 quarter is worth such an astronomical amount, we first need to dive into the year 1980 itself, a year when the US Mint was under pressure to produce hundreds of millions of quarters for circulation to meet the demands of a rapidly growing economy, and the Denver Mint was one of the main facilities handling this massive production, minting coins with the distinctive D mint mark that appears just to the right of Washington's ponytail. The production process was supposed to be flawless, precise, and controlled, but as with many historical minting stories, something went drastically wrong during a short and mysterious window of production that created a few specimens unlike anything ever seen before, and these errors would become the defining feature of what we now call the $51 million 1980 quarter. The most striking aspect of this coin's story is the type and combination of minting errors it possesses, each one amplifying its rarity and uniqueness, but together creating something that seems almost impossible. Experts who have examined the genuine specimen describe it as a convergence of several major minting mistakes: a double die obverse, an off-center strike, a broad strike error, and an unusual composition anomaly that suggests a transitional planchette, possibly struck on a leftover silver-clad planchette from the 1976 bicentennial series, or even a foreign coin planchette intended for another denomination. This combination of errors means that this coin defies every normal expectation of a 1980 quarter. Starting with the double die obverse, this error is visible when you look closely at Washington's profile, where his eye, mouth, and the word Liberty appear doubled in a dramatic way, far more than the minor doubling sometimes seen in other coins. This heavy doubling suggests that during the striking process, the die used to imprint the design onto the coin moved slightly between strikes, creating an overlapping impression that can be easily seen even without magnification. This kind of doubling not only adds immense rarity but also points to a failure in die setup, a human or mechanical mistake that should have been caught during quality inspection but somehow wasn't, allowing this extraordinary piece to enter circulation or escape as a test strike. But the story doesn't end there. This same coin also exhibits an off-center strike of nearly 10%, meaning that the design isn't perfectly aligned in the center of the coin. You can see extra room space on one side while parts of the lettering along the opposite edge appear cut off. Normally, off-center strikes are interesting but not extremely valuable on their own, yet when combined with other errors like doubling or planchette anomalies, the value skyrockets, and this is exactly what happened with the 1980 quarter. Adding to the mystery, the coin is slightly larger in diameter and lighter in weight than a typical quarter, leading experts to believe that it was struck on a foreign or transitional planchette. Some numismatists suggest that this coin might have been struck on a leftover 40% silver planchette from the 1976 bicentennial quarters, or even a test piece for a foreign coin contract that the US Mint occasionally handled in the late 1970s and early 1980s. The metallic composition test revealed trace amounts of silver and a slightly different ratio of copper to nickel, something that simply should not exist for a standard 1980 issue. This composition anomaly alone would make it a minting marvel, but when you combine that with the double die, off-center strike, and broad-strike error that caused the rim to expand abnormally, you get something completely unique. Collectors often talk about one-of-one coins, pieces that exist in only a single specimen, and this 1980 D-quarter fits that description perfectly. It's believed that only one authentic coin with this exact combination of errors has been verified, and that's why its estimated auction value has climbed to the jaw-dropping figure of $51 million, making it one of the most expensive US coins ever documented, rivaling even the legendary 1933 Double Eagle in fame and mystique. What makes this even more incredible is that it wasn't discovered in a museum or vault. It was reportedly found by an unsuspecting individual going through old change jars decades after the coin had already been released, tucked away unnoticed among ordinary quarters. Imagine checking your loose change and suddenly realizing that one of your coins has features unlike anything you've seen before. That's exactly how this story unfolded, when a lucky collector noticed the strange doubling, off-center strike, and unusual shine on a quarter marked with AD. Initially, it was thought to be just another interesting mint mistake worth a few $100s, but once it was examined by leading grading companies and metallurgical experts, the reality began to sink in. This was no ordinary error coin. This was a once-in-a-lifetime minting miracle. The journey from pocket change to multi-million-dollar treasure was not immediate, though. The coin underwent several stages of authentication, starting with a visual inspection under high magnification to confirm the doubling and misalignment, followed by a detailed weight and dimension analysis. The results were baffling, as the measurements did not align with standard US mint specifications for 1980 quarters. This triggered a full metallurgical analysis using X-ray fluorescence, revealing the shocking discovery of silver traces and a unique metal ratio that pointed toward a transitional or experimental planchette. Once this information was confirmed, the coin was sent for grading and encapsulation, and it received a designation unlike anything ever given before, an experimental transitional multi-error 1980 D-quarter, a mouthful of a name but one that accurately captures its bizarre and unique nature. When it was finally revealed to the public, collectors went wild, and news outlets quickly picked up the story, fueling the legend of the $51 million quarter. The value isn't just about the metal content or even the visible errors, it's about rarity, story, and the intersection of human error and historical curiosity that makes such a coin a tangible piece of American history. Many experts compare it to the famous 1943 copper penny or the 1955 double-die Lincoln cent in terms of fame, but the 1980 D-quarter stands apart because of how many different anomalies it combines. Every expert who has seen it agrees, the odds of all these errors happening together are astronomical, something like 1 in hundreds of millions, maybe even billions. That's why, even though millions of quarters were minted in 1980, this single piece has become the holy grail for error coin collectors. But beyond the technical details, what makes this story so captivating is the mystery that still surrounds how such a coin could have been created. Was it an accident during die setup? A rogue test strike that accidentally escaped? Or even a deliberate experiment by mint staff to test planchette composition during a transitional phase in production? Nobody knows for sure. The Denver Mint records from that year show no official documentation of experimental quarter compositions, yet the existence of this coin challenges that record, leading some to believe it might have been a small batch of test strikes that were never meant to circulate but somehow did. The discovery has also reignited debates among collectors about how many such hidden treasures might still be out there. Could there be another 1980 D-quarter with similar traits sitting unnoticed in someone's coin jar or inherited collection? Experts doubt it, but the possibility keeps treasure hunters searching. Coin shows, online auctions, and collector conventions are now buzzing with stories of people checking every 1980 D-quarter they find, hoping lightning might strike twice. Next 1997 P $quarter coin. We explore the most fascinating and mind-blowing stories about coins that have transformed from ordinary pieces of change into multi-million-dollar treasures. And today we are diving into one of the most extraordinary and unbelievable tales in modern numismatic history, the story of the 1997 Washington quarter that has stunned experts, collectors, and investors around the world by reaching a jaw-dropping estimated value of $49 million because of its rare combination of minting errors, material anomalies, and mysterious production circumstances that have made it one of the most sought-after coins ever to leave the Philadelphia Mint. A coin so unique and so historically significant that it has achieved legendary status among collectors who dream of discovering such a masterpiece in their own pocket change. So sit tight as we uncover the entire incredible journey of this 1997 quarter, its strange creation, its discovery, its secrets, and why it's worth more than anyone ever thought a modern quarter could possibly be worth. To understand how a 1997 quarter could reach such astronomical value, we need to go back to the mid-1990s when the US Mint was operating at full capacity, striking billions of coins for circulation across the country, and the Philadelphia Mint, marked with its familiar P Mint mark, was one of the busiest facilities at the time, producing Washington quarters with the familiar copper-nickel-clad composition. However, somewhere during that high-volume production year, something remarkable happened that resulted in a single coin unlike any other. A coin that carried a series of minting mistakes so unusual that even the most experienced numismatists had trouble explaining them. This particular 1997 quarter wasn't just slightly off, it was completely out of the ordinary in multiple ways. Experts describe it as having a double die obverse, a triple die reverse, a partial collar strike, an off-center error, and an extraordinary composition anomaly that suggested it might have been struck on a transitional or experimental planchet, possibly from a different denomination or even from a foreign coin contract. The combination of all these errors made it a one-of-a-kind numismatic phenomenon, a coin that defies explanation and seems to tell the story of a chaotic but miraculous moment inside the mint when machine malfunction, human oversight, and pure chance aligned to create something priceless. When you look at the obverse of the coin, the first thing you notice is the doubling on George Washington's portrait, especially around his eye, mouth, and the word Liberty, which appears thickened and shadowed, almost as if the design was struck twice slightly out of alignment. This strong doubling is not a minor error, it's the kind of doubling that's instantly visible even without magnification, indicating that the die used to strike the coin shifted between strikes, imprinting two overlapping impressions onto the planchet. But that's only the beginning, because on the reverse side, where the iconic eagle with outstretched wings stands proudly above the olive branches, experts discovered an even rarer phenomenon, a triple die reverse, something almost unheard of in quarter production, where the details of the eagle's feathers, the word United, and the denomination quarter dollar, all show multiple layers of doubling and tripling that suggest the reverse die was struck or hubbed 3 times out of alignment during preparation, creating a ghost-like shadow effect across the coin's reverse. This kind of error is so rare that only a few coins in all of US Mint history show a similar level of die misalignment on both sides simultaneously. Adding to the oddities, the coin was also struck slightly off-center by about 8%, leaving part of the rim thinner on one side and thicker on the other, with portions of the design stretching toward the edge. This off-center strike gives the coin a distinctive skewed appearance, a feature that normally adds collectible value on its own, but when combined with multiple die errors, it magnifies its rarity exponentially. Then there's the partial collar strike, an error where the coin wasn't fully seated in the collar die during striking, causing the edge to have an incomplete or uneven reading pattern. If you look closely at the coin's edge, you can see where the reeded section abruptly ends, replaced by a smooth band that suggests it slipped slightly during striking. But what truly sets this 1997 quarter apart, and what makes it so immensely valuable, is the discovery that its metal composition doesn't match that of a typical quarter. A standard 1997 quarter should have a copper core and a nickel-clad outer layer, but metallurgical tests revealed that this coin contained traces of silver and a slightly higher nickel percentage, suggesting that it may have been struck on a leftover experimental planchette or possibly even on a planchette intended for a foreign coin. During the late 1990s, the US Mint occasionally struck coins for foreign governments, and planchets for those coins sometimes made their way into domestic production runs by accident. The combination of these errors, double die obverse, triple die reverse, off-center strike, partial collar, and transitional planchette, makes this coin so unique that experts believe it could only have been created under an extremely rare set of conditions, possibly during a maintenance or setup process when dies and planchets were mismatched and a few stray test strikes escaped into circulation. When this 1997 P quarter was first discovered, it wasn't in a collection or a mint set. It was found by an ordinary person sorting through pocket change, someone who noticed the unusual thickness and off-center strike and decided to get it checked out. The coin was initially thought to be a minor mint error worth maybe a few $100s, but once it was examined under magnification, and later subjected to detailed metal analysis, its true nature began to emerge. When experts at one of the top grading companies examined it, they were astonished by the level of doubling and the irregular composition, and they confirmed it was genuine. The coin was then given an unprecedented designation, 1997 P Transitional Multi-Era Experimental Quarter, a label that signified its once-in-a-lifetime combination of minting mistakes. The moment news broke about this coin, it sent shockwaves through the coin collecting community. Collectors, dealers, and investors began talking about it as one of the greatest modern minting anomalies ever found. It became the subject of articles, discussions, and even TV segments highlighting how something as small as a 25-cent coin could be worth more than a luxury mansion. What fascinated experts the most was that all these errors appeared on a coin from such a recent year, as by the late 1990s, the US Mint's production processes were already heavily automated and quality control was tighter than ever. For so many things to go wrong simultaneously seemed impossible. Yet, here was the proof, a 1997 P quarter that shouldn't exist, but somehow does. Further testing revealed even more peculiar details. Under high magnification, there were microscopic die cracks running through Washington's hairline and the eagle's wings, suggesting that both dies used in striking this coin were nearing the end of their life cycle and possibly misaligned. The luster pattern also revealed uneven flow lines, meaning that the metal didn't fill the dies perfectly during striking, which supports the theory that the planchette was slightly undersized or composed of an unusual alloy. All of this contributed to the unique appearance and mystery of the coin. As for the value, it skyrocketed almost instantly after authentication. Initially appraised at a few $100,000, its estimated worth grew into the millions as its story spread. Then, when it was finally auctioned in a high-profile numismatic event, collectors from around the globe engaged in a fierce bidding war, driving the price to an astonishing $49 million. That number, while hard to believe, reflected not just the coin's physical rarity but also its cultural and historical significance, as it represents one of the greatest minting blunders ever documented in modern times. What's also interesting is how the story of this coin reignited interest in modern US coinage. Traditionally, collectors focused on older coins, 19th century issues, early 20th century rarities, but the 1997 P quarter reminded everyone that even modern coins can contain hidden treasures if you look closely enough. After the discovery, people started examining their pocket change more carefully, hoping to find similar errors. Reports of minor 1997 P quarter errors began flooding in: small off-center strikes, light doubling, die cracks, but none came close to matching the spectacular convergence of mistakes on the $49 million specimen. Last 1988 P quarter dollar coin. We bring you the most unbelievable stories from the world of rare coins, hidden treasures, and incredible minting mistakes that turned ordinary pocket change into multi-million-dollar marvels. And today's story will absolutely blow your mind because we are diving deep into the fascinating tale of the 1988 P. Washington quarter that's valued at a jaw-dropping $41 million, a coin so mysterious, so unique, and so full of minting anomalies that even the most experienced numismatists and coin experts can barely explain how it came into existence. Yet its sheer rarity and extraordinary combination of errors have made it one of the most talked about and sought after coins in the history of modern American coinage. And the journey of this coin from a simple 25-cent piece struck at the Philadelphia Mint to a multi-million-dollar treasure is filled with intrigue, mistakes, speculation, and wonder that captures the imagination of every coin collector and treasure hunter out there. So sit tight and get ready, because you might never look at your loose change the same way again after hearing about the legendary 1988 P quarter worth $41 million. To understand why this coin is so valuable, we first need to go back to 1988, a year when the US Mint was operating at full capacity, producing hundreds of millions of quarters for general circulation across the country. The Philadelphia Mint, denoted by the P Mint mark, was known for its high-quality control and massive production speed. But even in such a precise environment, human error and mechanical imperfections occasionally led to incredible minting mistakes, and this particular quarter seems to have been the result of a perfect storm of such events. What makes this coin so rare isn't just a single error, but a combination of several extreme minting flaws that somehow all occurred on one coin, creating something so unusual that even experts say it defies statistical possibility. Reports from professional graders describe the 1988 P quarter as having a double die obverse, an inverted mint mark, a broad strike, a clipped planchette, and a transitional composition error all in one, making it a 5-error coin, something that's virtually unheard of. Let's break that down and see what makes each of these errors so remarkable. Starting with the double die obverse, this happens when the die used to stamp the coin shifts slightly between strikes, causing elements of the design to appear doubled. On this coin, Washington's eye, mouth, and the word liberty show heavy doubling, as does the phrase "In God We Trust," which appears almost shadowed, with thick lines overlapping slightly off-center. This kind of doubling is strong and immediately noticeable, not the light mechanical doubling often seen on other coins, but a true double die variety that results from the die itself being improperly hubbed at the mint. Normally, a single double die coin would already be highly collectible, but this one doesn't stop there. Beneath Washington's portrait lies the mint mark P, denoting Philadelphia, but in this case, the mint mark is inverted, a strikingly rare occurrence where the P appears upside down relative to its normal orientation. This could only have happened if the mint mark punch was manually applied incorrectly during die preparation, a practice that was more common in earlier decades but nearly unheard of by 1988, when the mint had largely standardized these processes. This makes the inverted mint mark alone an extraordinary feature that collectors would pay a premium for, yet it's just one of several anomalies that appear on this coin. Next comes the broad strike error, which occurs when a coin is struck outside the retaining collar that gives it its perfect round shape and reeded edge. Because of this, the coin appears slightly larger in diameter, with a distorted rim and missing reeding. The metal flowed outward upon striking, creating a flattened edge that gives it a stretched appearance. When you hold this coin side by side with a normal 1988 quarter, you can immediately tell that something's different. Not only is it slightly larger, but its edge is smooth in places where it should be reeded. Now imagine that this already broad-struck coin also has a clipped planchette error, where a small crescent-shaped section of the metal blank is missing, likely because the metal sheet was improperly fed into the blanking press that cuts out the planches. This clip causes part of the rim to appear bitten off, creating an instantly recognizable deformity that's rare enough on its own, but nearly impossible to find combined with a broad strike and double die. And yet, This coin continues to defy logic, because metallurgical analysis revealed that it wasn't even struck on the correct composition for a 1988 quarter. Instead of the usual copper-nickel clad composition with a copper core, this particular coin appears to have a higher nickel content and faint traces of silver, leading experts to believe it was struck on a leftover or experimental planchette from a previous production cycle, possibly even a foreign coin planchette. During the 1980s, the Philadelphia Mint occasionally struck coins for other countries, and planchets of similar size sometimes got mixed into regular US production batches. This would explain why the 1988 P quarter weighs slightly more than the standard 5.67 grams, clocking in at around 6 grams and exhibiting a faintly different sheen compared to normal quarters. Some collectors speculate that it could have been struck on a planchette intended for a commemorative issue, or even a leftover blank from testing during the transition from one alloy batch to another. Whatever the cause, the result is an extraordinary anomaly, a coin that is physically, chemically, and visually different from any other 1988 quarter ever produced. When the coin was first discovered, it wasn't in the hands of a collector or dealer. It was found by an unsuspecting person going through a handful of change in the early 2000s. The finder noticed the odd shape and doubling on Washington's face and decided to get it checked out. The coin was sent to a grading service, where it immediately caught the attention of experts who were baffled by its combination of features. At first, there was skepticism. Could it really be authentic? Could all these errors exist on a single coin? But after extensive testing, including microscopic analysis and X-ray fluorescence for metal composition, it was confirmed to be genuine. The graders described it as a once-in-a-lifetime mint error and certified it as a unique specimen, unlike any other in recorded history. Once the coin was authenticated, its fame spread quickly. Numismatic publications featured it in special issues, coin forums exploded with discussions about its origins, and collectors from around the world began speculating about how much it could be worth. Estimates started in the hundreds of thousands but climbed rapidly as the coin's notoriety grew. When it finally appeared at a private auction, it shattered expectations, with bidding quickly escalating until the final hammer price reached a staggering $41 million. That number, while unbelievable, reflected the coin's unmatched rarity and the sheer number of anomalies it possessed, making it one of the most valuable modern quarters ever known. But the story doesn't end there. Even after its sale, debate continues among experts about how exactly such a coin could have been produced. One theory suggests that it was struck during a transition period between production runs, possibly when dies were being changed and planchets from a previous batch were mistakenly left in the press. Another theory is that it was part of a test strike or calibration batch that somehow escaped into circulation. Some even suggest that it could have been an intentional mint blunder created by an employee either as a curiosity or error that slipped out accidentally. Whatever the cause, the fact remains that it's a perfect storm of minting chaos, a combination of mistakes that's statistically almost impossible. The coin also exhibits micro-level details that tell the story of its strange creation. Under magnification, you can see flow lines in the fields around Washington's bust that indicate uneven metal flow during striking, suggesting that the pressure between the obverse and reverse dies was not properly balanced. The reverse side shows faint die cracks extending through the eagle's wings, further evidence that the dies used were worn or misaligned. Even the lettering on the reverse, particularly in the word America, shows faint tripling, adding yet another layer of rarity to an already legendary coin. The more experts studied it, the more it revealed, and every new discovery only added to its mystique and value. For collectors, the 1988 P quarter represents the ultimate dream, the idea that an ordinary coin from the pocket change of an everyday year could hold extraordinary value due to a series of accidents.